Well, good morning. I'd like to call to order the March 2nd downtown West Bend bid board meeting. Looks like we have a quorum, so we can continue on our agenda for the day. First item would be approval of minutes of the February 2nd meeting. After everybody's had a chance to review, we'll take a...
Motion to approve.
There we go. Awesome. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nay? Motion passes. So we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the financial report.
All right. We had very little in terms of change to our budget in February. We received just a little bit of investment interest for revenue. And then under our expenses, the only expenditures that we incurred were, was the $1,033 from the lights deinstallation, and that was an internal transfer to our Public Works Department. That's pretty close to exactly what we planned. Last year we spent just slightly more on that internally. We still have the encumbrance of $8,400 for David J. Frank. They have not yet billed us. They also have not finished removing the holiday decor downtown. So a lot of the Christmas ornaments that were in the flower beds have been frozen. So now it's been a little bit warmer. They're planning to get them out once they thaw. And there are a couple of trees that are still wrapped. So that's encumbered, and it will be coming our way probably in March. So other than that, there was no change to the financial report.
Any questions?
You need a motion on that?
Yep.
Yeah, motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Was the second Kathy? Sorry. Great.
It's hard to tell with masks today.
Okay.
So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion's approved. We'll move on to our next agenda item, which is the marketing committee report, and I think that is Kathy.
Yeah, we did get together with our group, and I think had a very lively discussion. I think that the question has always been the role of the bid with regard to marketing, and is the question, and I think is why the formation of our committee is to finally figure out what is the role of the bid with regard to marketing, and put a plan together. And I think what we have decided to do is pull a questionnaire together to present to the bid tax paying body, and ask the questions carefully, not to lead any kind of results with the questionnaire, but to see what they want the bid dollars to go toward. And with that, we'd like a lot of input from a lot of parties on questions that should be going out, and maybe that this should be done on an annual basis, questioning bid taxpayers and the business owners. Anybody else want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think the second piece that's important to this, and maybe the first piece is, Jess, you can help me out here.
Yep.
Is we felt that the main role of the bid for marketing is to market ourselves and make people aware of what we're doing and how we contribute in our role. And so we went down the path of putting together an information piece, similar to a flyer I pulled out of the lobby here on last year, and what did HR do and their impact, and IT and things like that. And Jess, you had some thoughts on that too as well.
Yep.
I thought that was a great first step.
Right. So that's our communications annual summary from 2020. We thought that before going out and surveying all the taxing entities and bodies, we would first inform them on how their money was spent in 2020 by putting together an annual report or an infographic of sorts, get that out. We have been, in the last 6 months, have been doing a recap after each bid board meeting to those members that we have email addresses to, or not members, individuals and constituents. Just providing updates on what the bid board has decided to do, what opportunities there are, et cetera. So I think we'll send this out electronically. We also plan to pull address lists together and mail this information, and even maybe do some door-to-door to talk to people and let them know what's going on, get some ideas. And then after they've had a chance to be a little bit better informed on what's happened in the past, we can then ask them through an online survey what their ideas might be for moving forward in the future, especially in terms of marketing dollars and how they might be allocated. I don't know if that helps.
Thank you.
It does. I think at first I was concerned that, like, I don't want the bid board to be marketing itself for recognition. You know what I mean? I think but the more we let people know what the bid board does, the more I think we will finally get people to come and say, oh, that's what you guys do? I didn't know that. And then maybe we will get more participation. Maybe we will get more involvement when they really understand what their options are as building and business owners themselves.
Just a question, was it discussed at that meeting whether once it's defined better, is there any reason to further detail that in the bylaws?
I think that that's our goal, because I think it's always been such a gray area.
Yeah.
That we really do need to define what our role is as far as the marketing arm of the downtown area. And I think we've had this discussion too many times on what is our responsibility, what should we be doing, how do you define marketing? I think oftentimes we're confusing marketing with advertising, and they're not the same thing. Advertising is part of marketing, but therein lies the problem in the gray area with language that is in our bylaws.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's, we can play definition, interpretation all morning here, but I do think it's a branding issue. And that is, how does the bid board improve the district, and what are they doing under that umbrella? And so I think it's important about how we brand ourselves there. Are we enhancing the overall experience to the bid district area?
And again, I think, and I'm not sure if you mentioned this, Jess, I didn't quite catch it, but marketing a bit to the community as well. Just to alleviate some confusion, if nothing else. And that doesn't have to be a big part of this, but people just don't understand what's going on with the Christmas lights and the bridge.
Who did this, who paid for it.
Yeah. And again,
I
not for recognition, just for some understanding.
No, I think
the
there's
community.
a lot of confusion. Even I'll admit to that. Being a property owner in the bid district, I didn't know the bid existed until I bought property in that. And I've been a lifelong resident of West Bend.
And we
so-
may be speaking to future business owners or building owners downtown,
Yes.
so it's important to know what our function is.
Any further discussion on that? It sounds like with that healthy conversation, this is overdue. That's fantastic. When are you meeting again?
We haven't determined that yet. I think that what we would like for everyone to do is to give some thought about questions and how to pull that information together. Not only that, I know we're talking about a questionnaire that can go out, and we did also talk about putting together an informational packet or page on what it is we do and the things, a recap perhaps for every year, to go out with a questionnaire. But I think, like I say, I think a lot of thought needs to go into the questions and how we put those together so that we're not leading the results.
Right. Excellent. We'll move on then to the next order of business, and that looks like Roofline Lights. Is there a presentation by anybody on that?
So I can provide an update. Jay Shambo and I met with Rob Steiner in February to talk through some of the ideas and thoughts that you had at the last bid board meeting. We discussed that some of the lights are out and some of the buildings don't have lights, and what are some ideas for adding lights to certain areas, including potentially the Riverwalk, Riverside, in the long-term future, things like that. It was a really productive conversation. He also explained sort of the complexities of how it's put together and the various setups for each sort of section that's out there, which was really helpful. And then also we kind of asked him about, should we continue to update the incandescent bulbs or explore options to go LED? And without hesitation, he was really quick to say, recommend LED is just the way of today and the future in terms of maintenance and cost and possibilities. He said there's so many possibilities in terms of types of lights where they can look like larger bulbs, but they're small and they're energy efficient. They're actually accessible too, whereas some of the incandescent bulbs are becoming lower in demand, so they're more expensive and harder to get and harder to replace. So what he did here was provide a proposal to do some engineering design work of the setup downtown. He's going to explore some of Hartford's lighting. We discussed that already. Jay and I also discussed, talked to Hartford a little bit about what their setup has been, and it's been mixed reviews in terms of the lightings themselves. They've had to do some maintenance there, and so I think, Rob will explore lots of different options and look into that. And so you can see what he summarized here is that he would help us with not only the design work, but crafting an RFP for anyone to bid on this project in a fair way. He knows all of the questions to ask and the various components that go into this sort of very complicated project. And we did discuss, different phases of it and all of those things too. So before you have a proposal for this sort of consultation and design work and, crafting an RFP. But we're happy to take any questions or any thoughts you have. Justice?
Yeah, obviously I've already expressed these concerns to you, but I'll do this now too. Reading this quote, it occurred to me that there wasn't even a fix what's there option on here. It would be good, I think, to at least get a price on what it would cost to just fix what's there now. Because, immediately we're getting into a marketing issue with the rest of the city, because I know there's going to be questions from the folks of the city about, well, why is the city spending all this money on lights downtown and blah, blah, blah. And of course, people don't understand it's not the city doing that, it's the bid. But I think we could at least have some comparison there for just fixing what's there. But it does sound like, moving into the future, we're going to need something we can kind of tack onto and go into the back of the buildings and go over the bridges or whatever we're doing,
Right.
And that's
we did talk about that as well, yeah.
What's that?
We did talk a little bit about like bridge lighting and other options that might be available in the future.
Yeah. But so I understand the likely need to change those, but did freak me out.
Another thing we talked about was that each panel, there are many panels out there, has like a sort of this twist timer, and it can get off if like the power goes out for some reason or something. And so it's like a very manual, like you twist the timer, you have to reset all these different functions for the lights to go on at certain times. Whereas if we were to switch to a more like sophisticated LED setup, we could have, there's lots of options that would be provided within the RFP, but a remote access, we can make sure everything is timed right. We could change the colors of the lights if we so chose, or, maybe we just choose white, up to you guys. But there are so many options with that. Whereas like if one of the timers gets off now, we might have lights going on at 1 a.m. and running till 6. And, so it's kind of this, and there's no way to really, know unless you go down there and make sure. And
Sure.
So it's kind of an interesting setup at this time.
My personal feeling on that, and that's a good point, perspective from the taxpayer is that, why are you spending money on that if we've got 7th Avenue? How many times have we all heard that? I get that. And it's important to relay perhaps, again, the function of the bid and get that out to the taxpayers. But I really do love the lighting down there, and I see so many comments on it that it adds such ambience to the downtown. I personally feel the route to take would be to have a schedule and start to replace sections and perhaps have a plan in place to do a section at a time with the lights and replacing them with the LEDs. I do think it's important to address the issue of, and I've said this so many times, we have such a charming downtown now and are focusing so much on the river. I would love to see those beautiful new bridges illuminated. We may not want to do that right now. We might have to put that into that plan, but I think it is important to talk about it now because with the construction of the west side of the riverbank, we would need to have that power to the light, to the bridge in that infrastructure.
Well,
So
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
that was just a thought that I had. I guess that's my wish list but it's, I hope, part of the discussion we can have on that.
Even if it was just spotlights in the short term, there's no way that would be that expensive. But yeah, I agree. Those bridges are beautiful.
Yeah.
I need to see those better.
I thought there was some discussion as to who actually owns the lights, because I remember saying something at a meeting that why can't I just walk up on my roof and put bulbs in the empty sockets? And there was something to the effect that Mike had mentioned that I don't think I had the right to do that because even though I own the building, I don't own the lights. So I know that German Fest committee purchased originally the lighting, which was like $100,000, and donated it to the Downtown Association. But again, this was all when everything was run through the Downtown Association. And then there was an issue of the maintenance of the lights. And I believe when we split, the maintenance was to go to the bid, but the Downtown Association still owned the lights. So I don't know if that needs clarification. I don't really, being a board member on the Downtown Association, I don't really see there being an issue of who owns it. We all want the same thing.
Right.
So I don't know if that needs to be clarified first or not, but I'm kind of in agreement with you of just take a section at a time and work our way down if it's going to be a matter of cost. But I do think it's imperative that those lights are all working. They look beautiful when they're on.
It sure does. It's so charming.
Yeah.
With your conversation, Peggy, I had another thought too.
Sure.
Why not a fundraiser for the lighting downtown? It seems to be something that's so popular with everybody, and you see so much of it on social media in the discussion.
I think that was brought up last week, and I don't think that you can really have a fundraiser without finding out the stuff from Steiner's to
True.
begin with.
That's true.
I think that we should have him come
Have
back if it's
an
possible and ask him all these
have an
questions.
Estimated total
Yeah.
for in a plan, and then perhaps consider that. Yes.
So I have whoops, sorry, Jay. Are you?
Are you
I'm
interested?
only going to speak when Tony says I can. Go ahead.
So I have a different perspective on this, and to give you a little background why. So I've spent and been involved in construction, the industry, for 41 years. Currently an executive chair on the board of directors for the Associated Builders and Contractors of Wisconsin. I also worked 32 years for the largest mechanical contractor in the Midwest and was one of the owners of the company. So when I look at a document like this, I look at risk management, I look at cost, and I look at clarity in the proposal. It's just what I do. And so I was hoping Rob would be here because I have several contracting questions. But I would agree, before you talk about phasing good ideas and fundraising, we need to understand the big picture here. And so what Rob has proposed here, I think, is more of a pre-construction approach with some mock-ups. That's what we call when we kind of, here's what it looks like, let's build it, here's what it looks like. But I'm also trying to understand what his bid format will be here with regard to how this $15,000 will be utilized moving forward. So for example, if this is a pre-construction proposal, the 15,000 would be a deduct off of his overall price when he does bid it. And I don't know if he's thinking that or if this is separate. So I'm kind of protecting the interests of the bid board too here, from a high level cost, and what do we have for clarity in this proposal here. And Rob would know that I would ask these questions if he was here. So I don't know if it's, if you'd be comfortable with me reaching out to Rob to ask those types of contracting questions and get clarity there.
So I can help with that, Ken. I do think this is a pre-construction proposal. I think all of your comments are valid regarding phasing and potential fundraising, but in order to get there, this step needs to occur. It's not a deduct because we would have to publicly bid the project once it's available for bid. So once you know what you're even talking about, at that point you'd go out for bid. So Rob and Steiner would have no ability to just assume they're going to get the work. That's not how public work projects work, and that you guys are bound by that by being a part of the city. So this is truly just a design, and we can never get to fundraising, we can never get to phasing of grabbing a section of the really bad lights and putting LEDs in until this phase, and I know it's expensive, until this phase takes place. Jess and I intentionally did not ask Rob to attend this meeting to give you guys a chance to chat about it amongst yourselves. And then if you have those kind of questions, yeah, absolutely, you're welcome to talk to Rob in between now and the next meeting. And if the bid board sees fit, it probably would be an appropriate measure to ask him back. He has it on his calendar already for the next meeting date of the bid board. But we wanted to give you a chance to kick it around and see the number, because it is 15 grand's not insignificant as part of, we just got to spend this money in order to figure out what we want to do. Justice, to your point about the cost to replace current incandescent, he'll give you that as well. That the bulbs are cheap and the hardware is expensive. That's what he shared with Jess and I when we met with him. And the hardware is becoming more and more unavailable in the future as that technology just leaves us. I don't hope that helps, but
It just surprised me that that wasn't a consideration on this bid.
Actually, a couple meetings ago, I put this on the agenda to discuss, and so this is awesome to hear all this, but I'm on your page, is the initial request was to at least find out what would it take to get every light working for now. All the stuff that we're talking about for the future sounds incredibly exciting, can be phased in, whatever, once we know the cost. I think the Riverwalk is still 2+ years out, so we've got to figure out maybe how to tie that in. I would love to have them back because I'm trying to recall the past. A lot of this seems redundant from what they've already done in the past to get it fixed to where it got the last time. So I'm wondering if we're kind of repaying for some things, because I thought they'd done a lot of that analysis of all the different components, and then they replaced all the bulbs. So it would be nice just to know, how do we get it looking good again until we get further down the road? If you want to have that conversation, great, but I want to be part of it because I want to hear the answers, because usually what stems from answers is more questions, and these are big dollars to spend just for any kind of initial analysis. So I hope we can get him back here next meeting, but when he comes back, it'd be nice to know, just to get us up and running again for the system we have, it'd be nice to know what that cost is.
So Jay, maybe you know this or maybe you don't. One of the flaws in the construction industry is we typically do free estimates. And so with that said, I think Rob might know without holding him to it, what a budget would be for something like this. Has he been able to share?
I'm not sure if I understand the question. When you say a free
What's
estimate,
the budget for the whole project? He can kind of come up with an idea.
I mean, we've talked a couple of $100,000,
Yeah,
$200,000.
$250,000?
Do you mean to replace it all to LED?
Yep.
Yeah, with all the fancy switches and the cell phone controllers, $225,000.
Okay, so big picture, that's the number, without holding him to it.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
In our prior discussion, Ken, for your historical, I posed that same question, shouldn't there be at least a free estimate initially, so.
Trust me, I know you open a whole can of worms there.
Jay, is it possible when he comes back to also bring back the history of what we accomplished before? Because again, I do think my gut tells me there's some redundancy in this. I could be wrong.
Yeah, so I don't know about the redundancy. I won't speak to that. I certainly won't accuse him of that. But what he was able to share with us were these master sheets, and it's digital as well. I'm not sure
As-built.
if we can send it, but his
Yep.
guys, as they improved the lights the last time and replaced all the bulbs that were out.
They mapped it out?
They mapped it out, so we had a starting point, which before then it was just chaos down there, and
Right.
any poor electrician that was sent to replace bulbs was on their own to try to figure it out. So they actually mapped it out. Bid paid for that, and we have that product in hand.
Okay. I guess there was no accusation. I just want to.
Yeah, I didn't mean it like that, but I believe all of the work in here is moving forward.
Okay.
And having Rob come to the next meeting, Jess and I can chat with him in advance. He's an accessible West Bend dude, right? So any of you can talk to him in advance with questions that you might like him to answer at the next bid board meeting. We'll do the same and get them prepared for it.
There's a lot of input here today, so I think it'd be great to have him in front of the whole group again. So it
Agreed.
might only be a 4 or 5 hour meeting. So.
That's funny.
That's awesome discussion. That's exciting because I think it's part of downtown West Bend and it shouldn't go away and it should be modernized. So all that said, we'll have to figure that out.
I know we can get bogged down in minutia here, but would it make sense to have a roof lighting committee with somebody that really seems to?
That'd be I think we should pose that once he presents, because then we might have enough uncertainty that we might want to narrow that down and take some, especially on the long term. I think it'd be a great idea because that's going to be a big number.
Like lights and decor.
Yeah. We might be able to make a decision on let's get it looking nice for the next year or two until we get further down the road or phase it in, so we can make that decision then.
I think the only thing that we would really need to address probably sooner than later is whether we are going to, with the reconstruction of the west side of the river, to make sure that
Some
there's
power is
power
there.
to the bridge, if there is that plan to do that.
I would hope we could make that decision next meeting.
Yeah.
It would just be
Okay.
smart to do that.
Yeah.
Spring is coming and they're going to start digging. Any further discussion on that? Fantastic. Well, let's move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the Historic District Update. I'm guessing that's in your report, or no? Okay, awesome. We have a presentation.
Is this on already? You can all hear me well?
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Very good.
All right, so I wanted to give a quick update. I've had a couple calls with Peggy Varigan at the State Historic Preservation Office to go through all the project details, the process, and nomination expectations. She's also sent over a couple examples that we are pulling from and working with to get the gist of the layout and everything necessary. I spent some time in December taking pictures of all the buildings. They do need a catalog of them all. And then we are sending those over to Peggy and Dinah. They're going to determine from those photos which are contributing and non-contributing, and we will go from there. So there are 64 buildings being cataloged. They are assigned a number and saved with their standards, as well as registry's requirements. We also have a district map, a photo key, and a narrative being developed for that to determine which properties are going to be considered contributing and non-contributing. So the next steps of that, there are some photos that have cars blocking buildings, so we'll have to go out and retake some of those. And then we will submit those photos to Peggy and Dinah to determine. While they have those, I'm gathering the historic background on each building necessary for the narratives. I will work with the Tower Heritage Center to get the history, the year built, remodeling, if applicable, the types of architecture, uses, and owners over the period of time, and all the other information necessary to go through this narrative to determine contributing buildings and why they have, historic relevance. I will also craft an overarching narrative of the commercial downtown and the various architectural styles, contributing assets, why West Bend, is important and it should be considered for this. So it is an extensive, detailed project, and we are making progress, and we are on track to submit in the next couple months. Does anyone have any questions, any follow-ups? No? Yes.
I have a question, sorry. Once the submittal has happened in the next couple of months,
Mm-hmm.
do you have an idea what the review process or how long it takes for us to hear the results of the submittal?
Yeah, I had asked Peggy originally. She said it kind of varies depending on their list. They do have a backlog. They have 4 meetings a year where they go through this. So she said she typically tells people between submittal and an answer of maybe 18 months, year and a half-ish. Yes.
Is there any way we can access this in case we have some information that might be relevant as far as the building history or the, is there a site or anything that's?
So maybe so Nicole is putting together an Excel workbook right now for Peggy and Dinah that lists all the properties, has images of the properties, and has some basic information about its history, like year built and maybe a little bit of description. Perhaps we could send that out when it's ready so you could access that. And if you have some historical information about one of those properties that's in the district that they already proposed for us, the outline, then that would be great to meet with Nicole. She's going to be working with the Historical Society on gathering more and more information. They require a significant amount of narrative about each property, each style, each grouping. And so she's done a really excellent job at compiling that so far, but I encourage you to work with her on it if you have some.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there some point where it's then in the building owner's court to proceed with wanting to be classified that way or not?
Well, so some of the buildings are already historically designated, like the theater and the History Center, which is outside of our district. But this is a commercial district, so it's not even looking at the inside of the buildings. It's more of the facade and the style, and that it's like characteristics creating a district. So it's not really about the individual buildings themselves. Once we receive back more information about which ones that the Historical Preservation Office is determining as contributing and non-contributing, that might be a good time to meet with some of them in case they have some additional background to
Okay, that's
submit.
what I was driving at. So.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
So next on the agenda is agenda items for the next meeting. Outside of, I'm pretty confident we're going to have Mr. Steiner present and our normal orders of business. Is there any other agenda items anyone would like to add to the meeting?
I have a thought now that I've sat in on a couple of times here to start the new year. I really like that report and update and the strategic level of where we're going on the historical district. Could we also have standing agenda items, more strategic in nature like that? And what I mean is, how about updates on the Riverwalk? Or what are the updates on, and I don't know what the right terms are, but infrastructure and logistics, meaning sidewalks, parking, the traffic realities, speed limits, pedestrian right-of-way. You know, some of the things I get to see when I have my all-glass storefront, watching all these things, and some of the things that can be concerning. But, you know, in the long-term view, the bid, I think that's what our role is. What are things that we could regularly get updates on so that we can stay informed and help with some guidance there in those key areas? The third one I was thinking is new business diversity. I don't know how to frame that, but you know, there's a lot of new business coming in and business going out, and are we paying attention from a very high level? Do we have the diversity in businesses that we're looking for? And I don't know how that all flows through the city, and maybe that's not our involvement, but I think that's important too as far as the business improvement district and our role.
It is, I think you're right, it is good to have a good mix, I think, in the downtown, but how do we control that? Really, we want to encourage a good mix of retail, restaurants, and
Yeah, and key word was, I said informed. I don't want to stay away from control, but informed, because we are the bid district, and can we be part of understanding what's unfolding and have some input on that, or at least awareness of what's all from a bid perspective.
I'd like to add to that to even request, I don't think that a representative from the Downtown Association has to come to every meeting, but just an update on maybe what's going on there. Again, I think that the more informed and the more we work together with the pieces of the puzzle in this, bid district, not that they're even asking for anything, but just a quick, hey, this is what's going on. Even if it's just submitted, that might not be a bad idea.
Sure. Yeah, I think as far as like standing items, standing items that would be on our agenda every time are like our financial report, sometimes like a marketing summary or things in the past that we did have an update on every single time. So some of these items seem very important, but I'm not sure we would have them every single meeting. So of course, like we're having right now, this discussion, we can always add agenda items in advance of any meeting and we'll continue to do so. So I would think that next month we probably won't need Nicole to provide us an update unless she has something, major milestone or something that has occurred. So I like that we have some flexibility there, and we can add all of these items as needed. We also do have that transportation committee that I know is planning to meet sometime soon, so that may be worthwhile having that group meet to discuss some of those other items that you brought up in terms of infrastructure and parking and all those things.
Those are all great topics, and we've obviously had presentations before, and maybe we always have those in front of us as a reminder. So, I haven't gotten an update recently. Maybe let's make that so we could maybe at the bottom of our agenda item have that list to remind us all, hey, it's been a bit since we've talked about that. And maybe eventually that becomes some kind of a rolling standing agenda of, okay, it's been 6 months since we've got an update on what's going on there. We could probably add that to the next agenda.
And even if the update is no update.
Right.
I think as we started today, what is the role of the bid when we were doing our marketing meeting? A standing agenda of strategic items that are always there kind of sets the framework for what our role is, and make sure we stay up here rather than, get into the day-to-day things that kind of come up all the time.
Yeah.
I do have a question about the improvement, what's happening on the north end with the old brewery. Is that going to be incorporated into the bid? How does that fit with our mission?
The only person I would know that could contribute to that would be Mr. Chambeau.
In 9 minutes, there's a meeting for the Joint Review Board to begin the creation of TID 15 that Mayor Jenkins is going to be leading upstairs. So that's the next step in the brewery project. There's still a proposal, as I think most of you know, for 177 units, multifamily, market rate, high-end living for new individuals in West Bend. Exciting for downtown and the transformation of that underutilized building for over 50 years in West Bend. It also has a 6,000 square foot commercial. The building owners, HKS or developers from Milwaukee, have not shared what that is yet. They don't know what that is yet. They haven't been able to lease that out or even begun the process of leasing out the commercial space. But they do have one commercial space and then 177 market rate apartments. To date, there's been no conversation about expansion of the bid to include that area, but your comment might be the beginnings of that, Kathy.
I think that would be probably important to address that, because obviously they will be benefiting from the downtown and.
And just to be clear, it would only be the commercial space that would
Correct.
be, yeah,
Correct.
the market rate
Right.
apartments wouldn't be wouldn't be affected by the bid because residential.
Right, but they definitely would be benefiting by what happens in that downtown area and would be considered part of it, but part of the downtown. But I think it's worth having the conversation on whether that is added to the bid.
So one more quick update on the project plan for the Joint Review Board. Before the Joint Review Board today, the project plan includes two exciting things for the downtown area. One is some funds to help reconstruct Main Street. That's been talked about for some time. 2017, the last time we had a proposal on this property. The bid was pretty excited about the possibility of having Main Street reconstructed as part of that. We can use funds from a project within a half mile of the location that directly benefit the project. So the Main Street reconstruction definitely directly benefits the brewery project, as you just mentioned. And then the other exciting public works project, if you will, that's in there is the Phase 3 of the Riverwalk, a significant amount of funding towards the construction of Phase 3, including the underpass under Highway 33, which has been in the works for the last 20 to 25 years in West Bend, and we haven't been able to get it done. This project has the pre-approvals in place already from FEMA and the DNR to go underneath the bridge, and this project would provide the funding to get that done. And as of now, we have zero funding towards Phase 3. This would provide the bulk of the funding to get that done.
Jay, would it make sense, since this meeting is now 5 minutes away for you, it sounds like it'll be very productive to give us a download next meeting on the results of that?
Maybe a Riverwalk standing agenda item in the future.
That'd be great.
Jay, you
Happy to
mentioned,
do
question, you mentioned reconstruction of that North Main Street into the bid district. Does that, am I hearing it may be opening up back that Main Street?
So the Transportation Committee that just mentioned will likely meet often in 2021 if this project moves forward. 2021 would be the year that those kind of conversations occur.
Okay.
I would share with you that the early word is no, that that's not possible to open up. It's a
Okay.
DOT-controlled intersection with State Highway 33, but some will want that, and Larry, who served on that committee in the past, knows that full well, that some individuals want it really bad and some individuals within the downtown don't, and I understand all that. Those conversations will occur.
Right.
So will bump outs, so will brick sidewalks, lighting, benches, all that fun stuff.
The future is exciting.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Jay.
What, Jay, real quick, I'm sorry. What does extending the bid to include that commercial space, what's the next step look like?
I'll leave you in Jess's hands.
Okay.
On that. Thank you.
Sure.
Good luck on that meeting.
It is a process, so changing the boundary in general requires that there's I believe that it's a 2/3% of taxing individuals actually vote for a change. So it's kind of extensive, and it does require a good amount of participation from those within the bid. It's very possible. You know, I think it's definitely worth a conversation. We had an early one. We had one in 2020 with Mike Husar about potentially looking more to the east side, you know, where there's West Bend Medical, and there are several other businesses kind of popping up over that way as well. So I think it's definitely worth a conversation. I can pull some more information about the process, but it's a little bit of a process.
Right.
So we'll say it's definitely possible, but not a one-day thing.
And it obviously affects their assessments because of the portion that goes
it
to the
would.
bid, so.
Yep. And again, it's just commercial properties,
Right.
so it's not residential.
Is that something you want to try and update us a little bit on next time?
Sure.
Or- Okay. Well, we sounds like we got a full agenda, just like
Well,
that.
and speaking of next time, so I do have two quick updates before we close. Our next meeting for April is on Election Day, and we are keeping it on that date, but we are moving it to the new Library Recreation Center. So that's the lower level of the library downtown. It's brand new. We thought it would be a great opportunity for you to see the new space, and then it's right along the bid district. So that'll be great to meet down there, and we'll have a full agenda, that's for sure.
How do you get in there, Jess?
Yep.
How do you get in there?
So when you first come into the library, the main entrance, there's a door to your left, and they do have a small sign pointing down the stairs. But it's kind of not when you get into the library, so just in that little entrance area, the vestibule. Yep.
Maybe when you send your agenda out, have a little bit of instruction
Yep, I
for us.
will.
I'd appreciate that.
Yep. And then, in addition to that, I just would like to announce to please save the date for Monday, May 17th, as our bid downtown cleanup day. We always have a Monday. We try to get all the bid members involved and, as many businesses downtown as possible and volunteers to come and help clean up and put mulch out. And it's actually a really great morning. I've
No doubt.
been a part of it in years past, and so that's May 17th.
We kind of missed the last one, so we have a little catch-up.
Yeah,
to do, but
last
the city
year.
did a
Yeah, we
great
got a little
job, but
cleaning to
because of
do.
COVID, that had definitely affected things. So, all right, excellent. So I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion and a second. We'll just say that one passes.
Thank you.
You've had it.